Guys, here we are, Lake Shasta. As you can see, there are a bunch of marks down at 60 to 80 feet. We'll see what we can do with these fish. I'm going to be running a shad spoon and a shad tube. I'm going to stagger those. I'm probably going to put one line at 60 feet, one line at 80 feet. Those fish are right on the 80-foot line. We caught fish here last night, so we got our fingers crossed. Okay, I'm trying to keep him down, keep him from jumping. Killed the motor. We were having a hard time in that wind. Here we go. It is not an easy bite out here this morning. That is a really nice and clean Shasta Lake rainbow. We've had some problems with copepods. This one has a little mark there. But like I said, it hasn't been easy this morning. We've been marking a ton of fish. We've got a couple bass, got a couple trout. We got one trout with copepods that I didn't want to film. We got this beauty here. But we've been working the marks, and we pop him off the hook here. He really wanted that shad tube. I'm running one of my rainbow colored shad tubes behind the watermelon diamondback. We were going about 1.4 when that fish hit.
FishHuntShoot.com offers a variety of tackle as well as rods and reels designed to get you on more and bigger fish. Check it out today at FishHuntShoot.com.
Howdy folks, Kel Kellogg here. A couple weeks ago, I kicked off a 2-video series about getting down while trout or king salmon trolling without using lead core line and without using downriggers. Now in the first video, I talked about using lead weights combined with traditional trolling tackle to get down to various depths. Today, I'm going to show you something that very few guys on the West Coast are using. It's a super efficient replacement for a downrigger. Fact of the matter is, sometimes using this technique, you can outfish guys using downriggers. And the technique I'm about to show you, it'll allow you to get down pretty much as deep as you want within reason, certainly down to 85 or 90 feet. And realistically, unless we're fishing Tahoe or somewhere like that, you rarely need to get down below the 80, 85 foot mark, at least here in Northern California. So what am I talking about? Well, before I show you what I'm actually talking about, I want to show you the tackle, because I've got a rod here in my hand, and it's a little heavier than traditional trout gear, and you'll understand why in a second. But let me show you the rod. This is actually one of my striper halibut salmon rods. You can use a lot of different rods for this work. This is an 8-foot long rod, and it's rated for 8 to 20 pound tests. So like I said, it's a little heavier than a traditional trout rod. I'm running a level wind line counter reel with that. It's a Daiwa reel, and it is spooled up with 20 pound braided line. Braid is very strong, very little stretch, and that 20 pound is such fine diameter, it cuts through the water with minimal resistance. So let's look at the business end of this. You see that right there? That is a diver, and they're sold under various names. A Dipsey diver is probably the most familiar to people. It's the easiest diver to find, but there are a variety of different divers on the market. So let me show you how this thing works. Here's my main line right here. Let me get this lined up with the center of the camera. This is my main line. This is the braid. That comes down to a snap swivel right there. I've got a lock snap on there. And it snaps into the diver right here. That's one connection point on the diver. This is going to pull through the water this way, like this. It's going to dive down. On the back, there's another swivel where I snap on my leader. We'll talk more about that in a second, but let me show you how this thing works. If you look at this from the nose right there, you'll see that there is a, let me hold it a little closer to the camera here. There is a screw there, and there's a little nut right there. Tightening that screw and nut, it adjusts the tension on this little wire arm right here. Now when it is in this position, you're ready to fish, it will dive. It'll dive down to various depths. But when you get a fish back here that grabs the leader and starts pulling, he snaps that, the diving effect is over, and you can fight your fish with minimal resistance. Now if you're trolling for ocean salmon, you want this thing dialed down pretty good, because that fish is going to pull hard. You're probably pulling a big bait, and you want a fair amount of pull to release that. If you're fishing for trout or landlocked kings, you want to back that tension off a little bit. Now on the bottom of this particular model, there's a little kind of a steering guide here, and you can adjust this screw, and this thing will actually kind of walk off to either side of the boat, and it will give it kind of a side planer effect. So you can spread out more tackle if you're fishing from a big boat. Now, one of the really cool things about these is that on the package, wherever you get one, it's going to give you a chart of, and everything's based on 2 miles an hour, but it's going to give you a chart using a line counter reel. For example, with this particular model, if you're going 2 miles an hour and you let out 175 feet of line, you're going to be fishing about 80 feet deep. So this thing dives, it dives pretty darn steep. So you don't have out a whole ton of line to get down to 80 feet. It's about 2 to 1. So that's a nice steep dive. Now on the back side of this, let me free this up here. Just for our purposes, I have a rainbow pattern flatfish. Get a hold of this here. I've got a rainbow pattern flatfish back here on the leader, and that leader's probably, I don't know, about 60 inches long. The leader looks like this. I have just a plain snap at the top end of the leader, and then I run it down to one of my regular dual lock snaps like I would connect any lure to. Depending on the size of your boat, the length of your net, stuff like that, this leader could range anywhere from 48 inches all the way out to 8 feet long. Doesn't matter. Typically, you want to run a little bit heavier leader material, go with fluorocarbon, but you want a little bit heavier leader material than you might use otherwise. So rather than using 8 or 10, you might want to be using 12 to 15. You're going to get just as many strikes. I know it doesn't seem like it, but I've been experimenting with a couple different guys with this kind of gear. It doesn't seem to deter strikes when you move up in the line diameter, the line size, when you're using a diver. And what we've been finding out is that for some strange reason, and I don't know why, none of the guys I've been fishing with know why, you seem to catch more fish on the diver than you do on a downrigger fishing right next to it. It's one of those mysteries. It might have to do with the color of the diver. It might have to do with the cable of the downrigger cutting through the water. Maybe it scares some fish. We don't know. But for example, I fished with my buddy Robert up at Lake Shasta last September, and I was catching anywhere from 9 to 12 fish a day using my downriggers. And I'm not the greatest trout fisherman in the world, but I got a pretty good handle on what I'm doing. The trout were scattered. They were anywhere from about 70 to 90 feet deep. And when I went out with Robert on the last day of our trip, Gina and I were there, we fished the same water I'd been fishing for the previous 3 days, the same basic lures. The only difference was we were using divers, just like this one here, and we got about a dozen fish in 2.5 to 3 hours. So we caught as many fish in 3 hours basically as I had been catching out of the Duckworth while fishing all day with the same gear in the same spot. And that just told me, man, divers, they're the real deal. They're very effective. Obviously, they're pretty cheap. This one right here, get it back in front of the camera. This one right here, it ran about $12. They come in various colors. Don't know how much of a concern colors are, but I have a few different colors. And if you're out in the kayak, these can save you a whole lot of cranking on a downrigger if the fish are down deep. If they're down 60, 70 feet deep, it works great. And here's kind of the final aside on this. I know a guy, it's February right now. I know a guy that is still using these, and he's not fishing very deep. He's actually fishing quite shallow. And he told me, you know what, Cal? The diver is still getting it done. And I'm like, how deep are you fishing? He's all like 12 feet. And he said he's putting out his diver, and he's only spooling out 30 to 40 feet of line. And he told me at times he can see the diver behind the boat. He'll troll for a while, and you'll pick up a fish on it. So, divers, they can kind of replace your downrigger. You got to use a little bit heavier tackle. You're going to be able to get down, deep with less effort, less expense. I don't think it's a do-all replacement for your downrigger, but man, if you're looking for an alternative, think about getting some divers. Even if you have downriggers, think about getting some divers to play with. They get you down. Sometimes, a lot of times apparently, they can catch you more fish, and who doesn't want to catch more fish? Anyway, divers, get some, play with them. They use these a great deal back on the Great Lakes. I'm really kind of scratching my head why they don't use them more on charter boats outside the Golden Gate. You know, we're pulling that big giant lead ball around now like we've been doing for the last 70, 80 years. This just seems like a much cheaper, much more efficient alternative, and they flat out work. So anyway, if you want to get down, you don't want to fuss with a downrigger, get yourself some divers. You might like them. I like mine. I can't wait to play with them more this summer. So anyhow, I'm Cal Kellogg. I'm signing off. I hope this tip helps you catch more and bigger fish, at least gives you something to think about. I will catch you next time right here on YouTube. If you haven't had a chance to subscribe, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Hit that little bell. You'll get a notification every time I'm here on YouTube. And if you haven't had a chance to check out the Fish Hunt Shoot Production store, check it out. It's over on our website, jam-packed with trout tackle. And if you got a mind to, you can pick up one of my striper halibut salmon rods as well. Anyhow, I'm Cal Kellogg. You have a great day, and I am out of here. Thanks, guys.